Is it easier moving to the other side of the world if you're already a person that's kind of moved a little bit around in your life before? What countries are going to make it easier for you to move to somewhere like Australia because, the type of lifestyle is already quite similar? Well, our guest today kind of did just that by being born in the UK, spending their formative years growing up in Canada of all places, and then eventually deciding to spend their adult life in Aberdeen. Yeah, they're really random places. That's what I think. Well, how has all of that moving around helped them to move to one of my favourite places in Australia, Perth? Are living in any of those places going to make it any easier for you now living in the most geographically isolated city in the world? I guess we're going to find out. G'day, Sarah. How are you going?
Hello. Yes, good. Hi, Ross. How are you doing?
Wonderful. I'm absolutely wonderful. I've recently started a new job and the slightly different hours are starting to wear me down. You know, when you start a new job and you've got this different
So you've
level
got
of intensity.
like jet lag, but job lag.
Do you know what? That should be, if that's not already in the dictionary, I think that you could probably trademark that one. 2025 word, job lag.
There we go. There are lots of ways I thought this podcast might start, but that was not one of them.
Yeah, well, as I'm finding every day in Australia, there's always a new word or a new phrase that I don't quite fully understand. So I don't know, is job lag an Australian word? Is that a thing here? We just invented it, so it is now. Are you finding that you've got any job lag with your recent work or anything like that?
Yeah, so I haven't started a sort of conventional job yet. I'm sure we'll kind of get into all of the story behind that. So I've just been doing a bit of YouTube and stuff on the side, which just slips right into my normal life. So no job lag for me so far.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen because it's terrible. It's probably the worst aspect of starting a new job. Kind of makes me wish I had my old job back, but then
Well, good luck.
Okay, Sarah, can you paint us a picture of what your life was like before you moved to Australia? Kind of what were you leaving behind? Perhaps what were you hoping to find? Tell us about before Australia. What was Sarah like?
Yeah, so I guess to go back to the very beginning. So my husband and I actually both grew up in the south of England in sunny Dorset.
Awesome.
And when I was 12, with my mum and my siblings, we moved to Canada, actually. So my dad and my stepmom were in the UK. So I spent kind of my teenage years and early adulthood kind of bouncing between Canada and the UK. So a bit of an insight into expat life there.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of went back to the UK for a bit and then moved to Scotland with Jamie. So we spent the 6 years before moving in sunny Aberdeen in northeast Scotland,
mm-hmm.
which when we moved, I think we thought, not sure this is for us, not sure how long we'll be there.
What took you to Aberdeen?
Yeah, so my work basically. So I'm a geologist. Got a job in the oil and gas industry, which the hub is in the northeast of Scotland. So went up to Aberdeen. Wasn't quite sure, as I was saying, wasn't quite sure we'd be there for forever. But very quickly started, I guess, putting down some roots. We loved the rugged Scottish outdoors, the mountains. We loved camping and hiking and the people. We just, really got on well with Scottish people. So we bought our house, we got married, we dragged everybody up to northeast Scotland on December 20th.
The best part of the year?
Exactly. I think we had about 4 hours of daylight. So yeah, really thought that Scotland was going to be a home for a long time. Maybe not a forever home. I don't think we'd ever feel like that, but we definitely were putting some really thick roots down in Scotland. I'm thinking we would be there for a long time. And yeah, quite happy in Scotland, all things considered, despite the fact we had to wear coats year round and, 20 degrees was considered a warm, sunny day.
Well, some people, they just like wearing layers, don't they? I'm more of a t-shirt, shorts, thongs kind of person. That's all the layers that I need. Some people, they miss the snugness.
Yeah, the coziness. I mean, when we first got to Scotland, people kept saying there's no such thing as bad weather, just not enough clothing.
Losers say that.
Exactly, yeah.
So it sounds like then your background, I guess a little bit like mine in the sense that I'd like to call us world travellers. We're not stuck and isolated to the UK. We've seen a little bit more of the world. I think that sometimes changes someone's perspectives about where they want to live, and then kind of has changed your perspective because you've ended up north of the wall going into Scotland and seeing what all that is about. What then kind of was the final tipping point, if you like, to make you think, I've gone to all of these cold countries before. They're not really ticking many boxes for me. Why Australia?
It's an excellent question. I feel like Australia has always been a bit of a mythical dream land in our family. I've had lots of family members. My dad used to travel to Australia quite a bit. My stepdad traveled to Australia when I was young. And when I was at university, again, probably with that international mindset you're talking about, when I was at university, I did a 6-month exchange to the University of Sydney just to kind of dip my
Okay.
toe in and see if it was what everybody kind of spoke about. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Sydney. I'm not like a big kind of city person, so I found the city aspects quite overwhelming. But the weather, the beaches, getting out into a bit of the more rural areas outside Sydney, just absolutely loved Australia. So always kind of had half an eye on if an opportunity ever opened to come to Australia, we might talk about taking it. And then that opportunity came up for us, I guess. We are here on a 186, so a permanent resident visa under a labour agreement schemes. My husband's job has that kind of labour agreement for those visas. That was quite an unbelievable opportunity for us, actually, just to come over to Australia as
Hmm.
permanent residents and see if it might be for us. So that agreement, that visa was in place for Western Australia, for Perth. So it took a long time. It took probably 2 years from applying to
Okay.
landing. That we probably, in terms of a tipping point, we probably tipped very, very slowly, but
Yeah.
are very glad we did.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds very similar then to most permanent residency kind of timelines. I think sometimes people can move here, they have this expectation that it's going to be a quick process. I think probably from start to finish with ours, it was about kind of 2 years. We've got a 189 permanent residency visa. Obviously, COVID tried to slow it down as much as possible. The birth of my first child also tried to ruin that. Spoiler alert, you can't have an x-ray whilst you've got a child growing inside you. No matter how much I did kind of try and
Right.
ask the doctors, I was like, are you sure, like, can we not, is there a thing that you, and they were like, nah mate, you just got to wait. I thought, oh, okay. It's pretty much a similar reason when they gave the ultrasound to find the sex of my first child, and they were like, it's a girl. I'm like, sure you can't find a dink dink in there, doc? I really wanted a boy. Now I've got two girls. That's a lesson for anyone. Want the other thing. Want the other one and you'll get it. Otherwise, you just get cursed. Now it's just me and the dog. But yeah, it's a kind of a bit of a different thing when you're trying to go for a permanent residency. So, were there any unexpected hurdles with applying for that labour stream visa? Like, was it smooth sailing? How did that work?
Yeah, I think we were very, 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 very lucky that all of the things that may have posed a bit of what's the word, difficulty, like being pregnant, didn't apply to us. Things like, hearing people who have also gone through this visa process, things like the fact that we were already married and had been in a relationship for almost 10 years was very helpful. A lot of people, may have to go through a bit more explaining their relationship situation to get the partner put on the visa. We didn't have any complexities in terms of our medicals or anything like that. We were both completely fit and healthy and went through on the medicals. So we didn't, in terms of the actual visa process, we were completely smooth sailing, no requests for further information. We did it all ourselves. So I know kind of migration agents can provide a lot of value for a lot of people, but for us, we were able to do it completely by ourselves. So
Just out of
that was all
interest, then, on
great. The
that,
one thing that, yeah.
because I know that sometimes when you go for, well, you're working with an employer, let's say that's part of the condition, if you like, of the visa that you're applying for. Did they have a visa agent working on their behalf, or was it kind of something that was completely driven by yourselves? How does that work? Because sometimes, you
So
people have to use an agent because it's kind of a condition of the visa. That's interesting to hear that you had the choice to be able to do it yourself.
yeah, and I think most of the people in our situation have done the same. We basically, the 2 years that we spent getting over here, the first year was spent, I guess, in the recruitment phases for Jamie's job. So really extensive interviews and psychological evaluations and fitness tests and lots of different things to get to the point where he got a job offer. And then from the job offer point, we got, I guess, nominated for the visa. And then with that kind of visa nomination number that we just put in our application, we were completely on our own on the visa front. So yeah, no requirement to use an agent, and pretty smooth sailing for us. Again, I know that's not everyone's experience, so we do count our lucky stars on that front.
Absolutely. I guess it goes to show that, these things kind of can be done and relatively easy for some people. You're absolutely right. Not everyone is in the same boat with having pretty similar things. Not everyone is probably as motivated as some people to be able to do it all themselves. I'm probably the most lazy person in the world. And I sometimes need people not necessarily to hold my hand through processes. I feel pretty confident in doing that. I actually need to be held accountable sometimes. I need someone prodding me. I had a personal trainer for a period of time. You don't have to pay for those kind of things. You can just download them. You get ChatGPT to write you a program, but it's just that person of going, go on, just do one more. Are you making sure you're turning up? Sometimes, I don't know, people need that. But no, it's great for confidence boosting for anyone thinking to themselves, oh, can it? Yeah, it can be done. And it's great to hear.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, there are definitely situations where I wouldn't recommend doing that by any chance, but we were just lucky that everything was very straightforward. And yeah, hopefully, as you say, it gives people a bit of a confidence boost, because a lot of online forums tend to focus, I guess, on the people who are struggling and are having a rough time, and people who are just getting on with it aren't necessarily writing Reddit posts about it. So hopefully this has been a bit of a positive visa story, which you don't hear many of.
Yeah, you always hear about complaints or bad things online. People don't tend to have the same oomph when it comes to writing good things sometimes. Now, if you think to yourself that you couldn't tackle the whole migration process on your own, and the thought of filling in all of those forms and potentially getting it wrong scares the living crap out of you, then I have a solution for you, and it comes in the form of our podcast sponsors. When you mention That Johnston Life and upload your CV or resume to True Blue Migration Services, you'll automatically qualify for a free visa assessment where they'll be able to tell you exactly what visa options are available for your situation. If you have any complexities and things that you've done in your past, or you're just really not quite sure what to do next, take advantage of something that's free because you mentioned us, and what other Mara visa agents might charge a few $100s for the privilege. Take advantage of their decades of expertise and experience from visa agents with a varied country background. They might even have some people from Canada as well. And when you realise that their service is pretty fantastic, not only will you have got the free visa assessment, but by mentioning us, you'll also save $200 off the cost of your visa. Put it to something nice and bubbly, probably. Speak to them today on their website at www.truebluemigration.com. So if you had good vibes, if you like, then from your first visit to Australia as a student, what was then your first impression when you finally got here as a permanent resident and this is the new life?
Yeah, it was. So it's been 6 months. It'll be 6 months in 2 weeks' time. So we're still quite fresh. So that moment is still quite fresh in my mind. And I think we were sort of braced for impact. We were sort of, right, we're going to have, I did actually have quite a lot of culture shock the first time I came to Australia. I was 19 or 20, a student without any money, landed in Sydney, had quite a lot of culture shock. Same thing when I moved to Canada when I was 12, lots of culture shock. So we were sort of braced for impact. And when we landed in Perth, where we're going to know the right words for things, where people are going to laugh at us for doing silly, ridiculous things, where we're going to make silly driving mistakes or anything like that. And actually none of that happened. We just felt like we just slipped straight in and just really kind of, got into the swing of things quite quickly. It wasn't as warm as I was expecting.
Okay.
I've quickly learned that WA stands for windy always.
Okay.
So there was this moment when we first landed, and our Airbnb was in Cottesloe, right on the beach, and it was sort of 8:30 at night, and we were quite hungry, and so we sort of poked our head around, and nothing was open. So we found somewhere a half-hour walk away that was open, a Red Rooster. And I just remember battling the wind. It was supposed to be 25 degrees, but there was this huge wind, and we hadn't unpacked our clothes or anything. So I was just braced against this wind, going through this dark suburb without proper pavement. There were sprinklers sort of going off, and we were having to sort of get our phone torches out, dodging the sprinklers, and it was very dark. I'm thinking, where is everybody? Why is everybody in bed at 8:30 at night? But I've since learned that is the Perth way.
No, I think that's probably an Australian way sometimes, unless you live right in the middle of the city. Our suburb where we are, nothing really goes on. I mean, there's the pub. The pub's still open, and I think there's a kebab shop just behind it. Tactically placed, very well. A lot of thought went into that one. But yeah, I mean, definitely, you're not going to be getting a coffee past 2:30 in the afternoon. Not in our suburb anyway, and there isn't a 7-Eleven, so you can't get an instant one.
There
But
you go.
it's interesting that you were saying about the wind factor as well, because I remember when we got let out of hotel quarantine and we were in our Airbnb as well, and we went out. Our first meal in Australia was a Mexican because that's what you do, and we were there as well, like in t-shirts. It was September, so it was kind of getting into the warmer aspects, warmer time of the year. Lots of people were saying to us, "Oh, you come at a good time because it's only starting to get warm," and we thought, "Yeah, we're out. Let's sit outside. It's a nice evening." And then as soon as that sun dropped and the wind picked up off the sea, we were just there like, should we go inside? And we're like, no, we're going to brave through it. And our 18-month-old at the time was kind of just, lips were slowly going blue. And we're like, just keep her warm. She'll be fine. So I don't know, maybe that's the tourist in us, in the sense that we kind of expect it to be warm all the time. Did you bring a jacket? Oh, no, we don't do that. Who needs one of those? Oh, but it's windy. No. All the Australians mind. We're watching them all outside. They're in they've got jumpers on, and we're like, now we've realised, apart from a Queensland summer, which is kind of sometimes unbearably hot, as soon as it's in the other 9 months of the year, lovely during the day, but as soon as the sun drops, jumpers come out. All the things that we thought we'd never need to pack, suddenly we're going to Kmart and buying a whole new wardrobe.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely, I think I had heard a similar story to that. We did actually get a shipping container and ship some stuff over with some blankets and our hoodies and dressing gowns and hot water bottles. So we are ready for the alleged cold weather that might hit us at some point.
It might not get used for your first winter. We still kind of felt pretty warm, but now, I'm in long pants. I even say long pants, completely changed. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. But the interesting thing that I want to know, though, was, I need to ask it before I forget, was there anything about living in Canada that you think better prepared you for a new Australian life? Or conversely, is there anything that kind of has set you up to fail a little bit?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question, actually, because yes, it has really set me up well, I think. I think what we found is the Australian way of life either seems to follow like a British standard or maybe would be the same as Canada. So one example would be not being able to park in the opposite direction of
That
travel.
caught me
In the
out.
UK,
I
you
got
can kind
fined.
of whip around, and it's like such a common story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
In
the
England, you
fines
park
aren't
where you
small,
want.
are they?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that as Jamie turned around to park in the opposite the direction of traffic, I said, "In Canada, you can't do that. I wonder what it's like in Australia." And sure enough, we looked it up, and it was the same as Canada. You need to park in the direction of traffic. So lots of little things like that. Probably the healthcare system in Australia is more similar to Canada. The fact that you have to go to the Department of Transport and take a number and sit down and fill out forms and stuff instead of just doing it online, again, very similar to Canada. So I think between my British experience and my Canadian experience, that's probably covered most bases for needing to set up life in Australia, which has been great.
Well, there you go. For any people in Canada thinking to themselves, I'm bored of the cold now, I want some of the warmth, then yeah, you're actually probably better set out for an Australian lifestyle than others. Before we go on though, I'm interested in about the job front, because you're definitely the first geologist that we've ever had on here. And I'm interested because obviously you're not working in the geology field. I hope you've had a little bit of a look, because otherwise these questions could die a death. But I was interested to think, how do you think moving to Australia, because primarily, you've moved for your husband's work and that's how you got the visa, but I'm thinking about you now. How do you think the move here might impact your professional growth as a geologist? Because there's lots of mines.
Yes, there is. I studied as a petroleum geologist, and that's where I kind of started out my career. I then quickly moved into more kind of project management. So I was actually a decommissioning project engineer as my last job in the UK. So I think between geology and project management, oil and gas, I think all of that has actually like Perth is a great place for people with that kind of general CV. So I do actually have a job lined up for July.
Congratulations.
Which is very much, I guess, thank you very much, is very much I guess, a lateral move from what I was doing previously, which is amazing. We could have had to sacrifice quite a lot in terms of our professional growth, but both of us have taken, I guess, a direct lateral move. But I think in both of, so the organisation I'll be working with and Jamie's job, I think both have quite a lot of potential to grow. And I do get that sense in Australia in general, there's a lot more kind of opportunities, at least spoken about. Definitely feels like a growing and thriving economy, which is very exciting for young professionals like
Well, despite
us.
what some people say, cost of living and all that kind of stuff, most people that come here, I think we do have that sentiment that it just feels economically better than the UK.
Yeah, and it's hard. I've made a few kind of YouTube videos about comparing, I don't know, cost of food and stuff like that. And it's hard to pinpoint why exactly it feels like that. I mean, we spend more on healthcare. We probably spend about the same on food. We spend more on accommodation, definitely. But for some reason, we just feel better off financially, which is, yeah, amazing.
The big difference for us financially is I now feel like I can save more. Whereas in the UK, I could just never save. Even if I could save a bit, there was always a reason why I needed to then spend it, and not because I wanted to spend it, like I had to spend it because something had broken or.
Yeah, and I think we always liked kind of looking forward to the next holiday, and the next time we'd get to escape the cold climates. Whereas here, yeah, we might want to hop over to the East Coast or go, up to the Ningaloo or something, but we're not planning a big, 3-week long trip to some far corner of the planet. We're really, we just don't feel like we need to get
You
that
don't need
escape
to
at the moment. So
escape
that's
anymore, yeah.
a big save. Yeah, we have only been here for 6 months, so that may come. We may need some, I don't know.
I've been here
I don't know what yet, but that may come.
I've been here for nearly 5 years, and every time we kind of feel like we want to buy something new to upgrade the lifestyle, upgrade the house, I kind of say to my wife, Sam, I'm like, you do realize that that's going to push our family trip back to the UK even further back if we do that. And it's kind of like, okay, that's what it is then. Like, here for the now, I'm living the life that I want to live, and I don't feel like I need to spend the money on a holiday just to escape my life. I want to enhance my life rather than escape it.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
One of the reasons why I did ask you to come on the podcast is because I had seen some of your YouTube videos. It's good because I feel like sometimes I never really documented much of my life and how it changed when we first arrived. I guess I didn't really have much direction about where I wanted our channel to go. I still maintain I'm just some weirdo that makes YouTube videos, but I like yours, and it's very raw, and it's very much from the perspective of someone, forgive the term, kind of fresh off the boat. So can you share, I don't know, do you have any experiences now that have kind of made you, in the last 6 months, made you feel at home in Australia? Or is the UK still home, or is Canada home? How's the mindset?
That is we could sit here for hours, defining home and where home might be. I think in terms of whether Australia is home, and again, we've spoken about this on the YouTube channel. Thanks for your comments there, by the way. Always just throws me off to think that, okay, people are actually watching, but in terms of home, I think I feel very settled in Australia, more settled than I think we could have hoped for. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it feels like home yet. We're actually going through a bit of a rough time at the moment. Jamie had spinal surgery a week ago, which was quite a big thing to go through kind of here on our own. And I think actually going through something a bit more negative and a bit trying has helped that sort of home feeling come a bit more. It's not just a holiday anymore. This is real life. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. But then also how, we've been making some friends over the 6 months that we've been here, and how those friends have shown up for us in this time. We opened the back door. I got a little text the day we got home from the hospital, and somebody's left an apple crumble on the back step for us. Just really touched by, I guess, the community that we're building that will eventually mean that this feels like home.
I hope he's okay with his surgery. How have you found the whole Medicare system? I mean, you've probably experienced it unfortunately sooner than most.
Yeah, I think My headline for how I find Medicare is very confusing.
Okay.
Because it's not, you know, in the UK, if you go through the NHS, especially in Scotland, everything is free. Your prescriptions are free, your eye tests are free, everything is completely free. You don't have to worry about anything when you walk into the doctors. If you go somewhere like America, you've got the opposite, guaranteed to have to pay for absolutely everything.
Do you want to breathe while you wait? Yeah, that's going to be a charge.
Yeah, exactly. I don't suppose you want your teeth whitened while you wait for, you know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
with a chemical that's banned in
so
54 countries, but do you want to try it anyway?
there we go. Yeah, I won't do too much America bashing on here because I want to go and visit again someday. Anyway,
I'm not fussed. I've done my time in America.
yeah. So yeah, there's the American system where you're guaranteed to have to pay for everything. And then you've got Australia, which kind of sits somewhere between the two. So I have walked out of the GP's office and forgot to pay. Had got halfway home, had to turn around. I remembered myself, so it wasn't like they had to phone me and call me back in. But the way our GP works is you go, you pay anywhere from, depends on the day and the length of the appointment and what they've actually done in the appointment, anywhere from, I think we've paid between $70 and $120 for a GP appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get the Medicare rebate, usually there on the spot, which is around $45, I think. So, you know, we're paying anywhere from maybe $40 to $80 for a GP appointment, which again, it depends what, you know, a Saturday GP appointment is more expensive, a longer one, if you just need a sick note, it's cheaper. So I'm never quite sure how much we're going to be paying when we go in. Jamie, with what he's had going on, he had to have a sort of more minor procedure, and we phoned one place that were going to do it for $800 with a $400 rebate, and then the next place did it bulk billed, and it was all completely done through Medicare. We didn't have to pay anything. So I'm not thoroughly researched, and with all of the kind of medical admin that goes on with something like this going on, that extra layer of having to think about cost, we have found quite challenging. I guess we're just in a we again are really fortunate that, you know, we're not having to worry about every dollar at the moment. So we're just kind of taking it as it comes.
My one piece of advice for you and anyone else that's having to face the Medicare system for the first time, especially in comparison to the UK, I'm not necessarily too sure about Canada, but I often found in the UK that you kind of got what you got. Like, it was free, but there wasn't necessarily that element of choice with it. You know, that's your doctor for today if you want the appointment. I mean, even that sentence on itself in England is crazy, because you're like, what, a doctor that day? No, you got to wait weeks, mate. You know, so you never really had that choice about timings, or you just got what you got. Whereas here, with regards to Medicare and the medical system in Australia, there is a lot more choice, and probably more choice than we're used to. So we don't often think to ourselves, we have the freedom to be able to shop around. Like, you don't like that doctor, go and find a different one. It might not necessarily be in the area that you want. Oh, I like the one, but I've got to travel further away. It's like, well, you got the choice. Do you want the one that is an asshole and, you know, he's on your doorstep, or you can go for the one that you like, or that one might be free, you know, and that one, or I say free, bulk build, and then the other one isn't necessarily bulk build. Even procedures, I view it a bit like when you're trying to have anything done and you have to pay for it, kind of try and get 3 quotes, and then, you know, then you get the rough idea of, oh, does that seem kind of really reasonable? And then obviously if one's going to say that they're bulk build, then you go, yep, I'm basically going to have that one, because then I don't have to pay for anything. That's what you're hoping for, which is increasingly harder to find. But because I think we've never really had that element of choice, it's a very weird feeling to think, I can go and get a second opinion. Yeah, okay, bye.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think we have to remember that, as you're saying, the level of service that we were getting in healthcare with the NHS was just, you know, it's well documented that the NHS is not in a good place at the moment. You can't get into your GPs, you can't get what you need. There are years of waiting lists for pretty much everything you want to do. So you're finding that people are having to go and pay for themselves and going private anyway. So yeah, I think other than the additional kind of financial admin, we have been very impressed with the Australian medical system. And, you know, we have been able to see the same GP since we've been here, which we've never had. We've never had a GP that knows us, knows our story, is really getting to, you know, can understand everything that's going on. So
Great to
yeah,
hear.
again, feeling very grateful for for that.
Another thing that's great to hear is obviously you've found yourself a new social circle and a community that's really supportive. I think that's a big challenge for some people sometimes when they move to Australia. I know it's definitely a fear of lots of people, like they get anxiety about, oh, I'm going to be leaving friends and family in the UK or wherever. And, am I going to be able to rebuild that kind of thing again? Like you can never really replace friends and family, but you'd want to know that you can build something back. Have you got any tips then with regards to building that social circle back? How have you been able to build something so supportive in such a short time?
Yeah, good question, and definitely, as you say, a hot topic for people who have made the move or are making the move. And I think the first thing we had already done. Obviously, I bounced around a bit, and Jamie had moved from Dorset to Aberdeen. So, in terms of our childhood friends and our closest family, we felt like we had already done that move. We were a day's travel or half a day's travel from our closest family in the south of England, or even more to Canada. Anyway, so that's kind of the position we've come from. But I think having moved from Aberdeen's got a population of about 200,000. People from Aberdeen tend to stay in Aberdeen, so it is lots of people come and go for work. But on the flip, on the kind of the opposite to that is Perth, where the city's 10 times the size and is full of expats and people going through similar things. So I've used quite a lot there are lots of different like meetup groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are so many of them. I hear, there are ones for parents. There, I go to sort of more of the young girl, not young girls, young female kind of groups. There's a group called Seagulls that goes kind of swimming in the mornings and stuff like that. There are so many meetup groups that I've really been able to meet quite a lot of people that way. And I think because we're all going through the same thing, I think that's where this kind of extra layer of being able to kind of help each other out comes from. We're all here on our own. If something were to happen to our friends, even though we've, only been hanging out for a few months, if anything were to happen to them, they know they can call us. And likewise, as we're kind of going through a bit of a tough time at the moment, people have been so willing to help out and reach out because they know if they were in that position that that's exactly what they would need. So I think meetup groups. I also think saying yes to as much as possible. I've had some quite interesting, just random experiences. One, Brooke McIntosh is currently running around Australia, and she left from Perth probably a couple of months ago now. And it just was like, come to the beach at 5 o'clock in the morning to send Brooke off on her run around Australia for mental health. And I thought, why not? It's probably not something, again, in Aberdeen, I was, cozy in bed with, a few good friends. But here I was like, that's exactly, I'm sure my kind of people are going to be at this event. So off I go.
Yeah, Australians, they love getting up earlier, don't they, anyway? So I find, it's that up early, not necessarily up so late mentality. You probably be able to find a coffee shop at 5 o'clock in the morning that's open rather than going around at 7:30 at night.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting then, I'm getting this vibe that perhaps you're a bit of a changed person then as a result of moving to Australia. How do you think, or do you think that living here has changed you at all in just 6 months?
Yeah, I think before we moved, I was actually quite risk averse. So I don't think we would have made the move had we not had a permanent resident visa, for example. As I say, we'd really laid down some thick roots in Scotland, bought our house. I loved my job, absolutely loved the job in Scotland. And it really was quite a leap of faith to make that move to say goodbye to all of that. We both had stable incomes, a nice stable house, etc. To sort of throw it all for a lot of unknowns was really quite a big deal. And then not everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong, but we've had some, hurdles thrown our way with Jamie's back injury and, with the rental crisis. We are very lucky to be in the flat that we are, but it's probably not our dream home. We've had some health issues with family members, and all of that. If I'd known that was coming, again, I may not have made the move. But you know what? We are still smiling, we're still happy, we are still overall really enjoying ourselves. So I think I've become a lot less scared of, taking risks. and that I thought I would have a job in a few months, and I made the choice not to because I've just been enjoying taking some time off and not needing to worry about doing the 9 to 5 thing, just taking that extended time off. So I think it's definitely taught me that there's a long way to go between, a nice stable life and absolute chaos. There's a lot of layers in between, and you can actually probably tolerate a lot more than what you think you can when you're sat at home, again with a nice stable job in a nice house. I think I'll be taking on kind of more adventures and saying yes to more than I would have done before we moved, for sure.
It also sounds like you've been through some tricky bits so far, even in your short time here. Has there been anything that's made you question the move?
I can think of one time that I really felt like I'm not sure this is for us. But all things considered, especially the main thing being kind of Jamie's back injury, we've been surprised at how we haven't actually felt like that, and how it's actually, got a few bits of bad news about his back, for example, and just going and watching the sunset on the beach was just so like soul restoring. And just being able to go for a bit of a walk and not have to bundle up and battle the rain and the wind. We just find it so easy, I guess, to kind of reset and get a bit of kind of mental clarity, I guess, that we keep saying to ourselves, if we're going to go through this, like, we are actually in the best place to do that, and that the sunshine and the warm weather really has made some of our less rosy experiences all that more bearable. And things, just practicalities with his kind of back injury. Swimming's great, and our building has a swimming pool. We're right next to the beach. There are a million swimming pools between here and the beach. Yeah, there are lots of ways that being in Australia has actually made a bit of hardship quite a bit easier for us.
Okay. Now, something which I guess for me was one of the big realities helping me to decide, is this really going to be a positive move to the other side of the world? And, with cost of living, we touched on it earlier. How do you find the financial realities of living in Australia? Is there anything cost-wise that surprised you, both for being perhaps too expensive, or why is that so cheap? You don't often have those feelings, but yeah. Tell me about the cost of living part.
Yeah, I think we are starting to look at what buying a house might look like here. And that is just a completely different cost level, order of magnitude, than we were
Okay.
used to paying in the UK. And we bought our house during COVID, and locked our mortgage rate in 2021 for 5 years. So we had a very, very low mortgage rate in Aberdeen. And I know, obviously, we would be dealing with this if we were in the UK as well. But put on top of that, the house prices here, it's just even to get into an entry level, the kind of property that we could possibly get away with, we're looking at probably 4 times our mortgage payment in the UK,
Wow.
which is going to be a bit of a mindset shift, definitely. But again, we won't be saving up for a move to the other side of the planet. We obviously had a wedding and stuff a couple of years ago, so there are some big spends that we won't be saving up for. But I think the mortgage is definitely going to be a big change for us. And just generally, yeah, I mean, we're renting at the moment. That's been a big jump as well, but feels a bit more temporary. I guess taking on a mortgage feels a bit more permanent. And just things like, just to touch on mortgages there, people seem to go for more kind of variable rates here as standard, we've heard. So just trying to get our heads financially around getting into the housing market is going to be the next hurdle. But I guess more generally in terms of cost of living, we actually find we're spending the same amount on food. Again, I vlogged what we eat in a week, and I calculated how much we spent, which was actually way more than than I thought we were spending, having sort of documented every coffee and everything else. I went back to the same week the previous year, so when we were in Aberdeen, the exact same week, what we had spent on food, and it was within sort of tens of dollars. Like, it was really quite close. So food seems to be about the same for us. Fuel, like petrol, is obviously half the price here, with the added complication of fuel cycles in Western Australia. I don't think you have quite such excitement on the East
Is that
Coast,
like when
I've heard, but
it suddenly the price jumps up?
yeah, so it's a weekly cycle. So Tuesday is the cheapest day of the week to buy fuel, and then it jumps up overnight into Wednesday. And we were aware of this, but we're thinking, a few cents here or there. But our fuel station down the road was a few weeks ago, 51 cents difference from Tuesday to Wednesday. So
That's a major
there's
difference.
always queues out of the. Yeah, so fuel is obviously a lot cheaper. But all of the things that are cheaper here, like food's the same, fuel's cheaper, etc., is definitely outweighed by the fact that accommodation, for us at least, is a lot more. I guess if people are moving from London, probably they don't have that problem.
That's the thing I was going to say about kind of houses and stuff like that. Like you say, you were moving from Aberdeen. It was obviously a much smaller place than Perth. I think that sometimes people forget when they move from, I'm not saying Aberdeen's rural, but like a smaller place in the UK, typically, further up north as well. The shock. I was speaking to someone on Instagram and they were like moving from Northern Ireland and talking about the cost price differences for housing there. And wildly different. I think sometimes as well, something that might lessen the blow, is the idea of how much are you paying per square meter? Because, the houses here are much bigger. I'd probably go as far as to say I reckon the house that you'd be looking for here would probably be bigger than your Aberdeen kind of house. So although it kind of feels more expensive, you're getting more for, and perhaps the value of it would be better. I know that the price that we were paying when we kind of moved over here, we essentially, I mean, it's not, you can't necessarily quite, yeah, sorry, I can judge it based on that because those were the prices at the time, best part of 5 years ago. We essentially traded our 3-bedroom semi-detached in the southeast of England for a 5-bedroom place here. It was a pretty much direct transfer. We didn't add that much more to it at all. If anything, maybe let's say 10 grand.
There's Australia gets the kind of, Australia's more expensive, but actually they are big cities. Like Perth's obviously not even the biggest city, but I think we looked it up, it would be the 5th biggest city if it was in America. These are big cities. If you were moving anywhere into a city of these sizes, you would be dealing with a jump in house prices. And we have, as you say, the luxury of them being bigger, which is not common for cities of this size.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, comparing your life here to the UK and Canada, is there anything that you miss?
Good question. I mean, I think obviously you just have to say family and friends, like that's completely irreplaceable. And
What's the weird things
the
that you
thing
miss,
that
though?
really kind of makes this, so the weird things, it's just when I spend so much time in supermarkets, and on my social media I'm always going on about supermarkets because there is nothing worse than when you go, if you get a craving for, last week it was Robinson's orange squash. I just wanted to go in and pick up a bottle of orange squash. No, not a thing. I did eventually find some Ribena, which was a good alternative, but yeah, just little things mostly in supermarkets. Cheese is obviously gets a lot of press, is very different here. And just, I think we will eventually maybe miss the cold, especially around Christmas time. Christmas was bizarre, just very strange. So I think we'll definitely miss Christmas eventually.
For me, I think just Christmases are different now. I don't, if it comes down to, the cold romanticism about Christmas in the UK, but basically it's you sitting in a relative's home, opening presents, getting pissed at 9 o'clock in the morning because there's nothing else to do. I get pissed at 9 o'clock in the morning here because I want to,
There you
not
go.
because I want to drown out the dreariness of, oh, God forbid if I have to open up the curtains and look outside. It never snows.
Yeah, but I think the last thing I want to do leading up to the 25th of December in Australia is walk around shopping centres buying presents. Whereas, if you're somewhere cold and miserable, that's exactly what a good time feels like.
Doesn't everyone do it on Amazon nowadays anyway?
Oh my gosh, we haven't even touched on Amazon here. Oh my goodness.
Please, this sounds like
I
a
don't
hot
know.
topic.
I don't know if Perth. Well, I just can't believe I didn't realise quite how much we were relying on online shopping in the UK. And I don't know. I think Perth might be particularly, again, WA, wait a while. We just can't seem to. You're sitting in bed at night. Oh, I forgot to order extra bin bags, and you just go on, and bin bags are on your doorstep before you wake up the next day. It's just not like that here. An Amazon delivery is like a 3-week lead time.
Well, I'll tell you what now, I'm going to add
just
that to the list of the other reasons why the most geographically isolated city in the world is probably not my favourite. Because I struggle with, having to wait a day. Here, what's that? I have to wait a day. Why
There you
don't they have
go.
those ones where you can get it the next day? I think if you really are a fan of the Amazon ones, I hear that in Sydney or perhaps Melbourne, you might still be able to get next the same day delivery kind of things. If, that's really important to you. Oh, we've got lovely beaches. Yeah, but have you got same day delivery? What about my bin bags? Just get more organised, mate.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, how hard can it be to bring bin bags from Sydney by tomorrow
Do you
morning?
know
I
what?
mean,
Some
come on.
Australians going to hear us talking about that, not realising our sarcastic tone, and they're going to tell us to fuck off home.
It's just part of comes with the territory, doesn't it? Whinging Poms.
Yeah, fuck off home and get your bin bags. Oh, sorry, mate.
Yeah.
I pay tax here, so
My favourite
I'm
one on
in here now.
that topic was I pointed out that sometimes in Western Australian supermarkets the onions are peeled, which I just found a bit interesting. I'd never seen peeled onions just loose for sale in the supermarket before.
I'd seen
And
chopped
people
onions in a
came for
bag.
me. I mean,
Did they?
yeah, no, yeah. If I don't like the onions, I can go home. I'm lowering the IQ of Australia.
What?
Like it's not just about the topic at hand, right? It's like an attack on your character. But
What?
yeah.
What has happened? Who has hurt these people that feel like, these things come up? I'm sorry that we come up on your social media, slightly cheery about our new lives here, questioning some of these slight oddities that we might experience. Nah, fuck off home. Like, go home. Sorry. Isn't
Yeah.
that how we make things better
Yeah.
when we
Do you need
spot
a hug?
things? Yeah. Whoa, who hurt you? Nah, it's terrible. It's terrible. I think we should have a bit of a quest to try and improve those people's lives. Not the people who are trying to make a better life. We need to benefit more Australians because there's a small group of people who just love to troll people online. Maybe they're just winding us
Yeah.
up. Maybe they're having the last laugh. Maybe they're doing it thinking, oh, they've never heard this before, have they?
Maybe it's a joke. Maybe we're just, so like out of touch with humour and sarcasm that like it's just a joke that we're not in on.
And
We'll go with that.
there was me thinking I had a dry sense of humour, ragging on Perth, but these people are ragging on me, and I just don't get it. So, what are the plans then for the future for Sarah? Talking about obviously buying a new house. Are there any other big goals on the horizon?
Yeah, I think it's just get properly settled here, to be honest. So I'll start my job in July, which I'm very excited about. Hopefully, after that will come the house purchase. We'll have our first visitors. My dad and stepmum are planning to come over in December.
Are they the ones from Canada?
So I guess no. So they're in England. They'll be coming over from Dorset, and yeah, just I think day to day life at the moment is so exciting as we get our feet on the ground that we don't have any big plans other than just sort of start getting a bit more settled here, really.
Do you have any either regrets about the move, or have there been any mistakes that you've made? I mean, like me, I made the mistake of parking the wrong way. Is there anything that a potential migrant over here, they need to know based upon someone's misfortunes?
I think there are lots of little things for us personally, like we did do a shipping container. We did a shared shipping container. You'll probably find that the people who brought lots of stuff say they should have brought less, which is probably the boat we're in. And the people who didn't bring anything say they wish they had brought stuff. So I guess just really research and do what feels right for you on the shipping front. I think one mistake when we first got here, I had been spending 2 years researching all the places in Western Australia to go and see and all the things to do. And we really, whilst trying to set up a life, kind of really tried to hit the ground running. We were driving up to the Pinnacles, we were going down to Esperance, we were trying to do all these big trips in amongst setting up a life here. So I think if I was to redo our first couple of weeks again, I would just chill out a bit and just enjoy the actual process. And I think it is, again, we didn't lose, but it took 2 years for us to get here. And that entire 2 years, you've got a goal a long way in the future. You kind of lose a bit of time that way. I think
Your life
just
feels on hold a
enjoying
bit, doesn't it?
that process a bit more. 100%. And yeah, 2 years is a long time for that. So just enjoy the process, the whole step of the way, and just be a bit more relaxed about it, which is not easy to say. It's easy to say now I've come out the other side. But yeah, I do wish, especially those first couple of weeks, we had just enjoyed doing a bit of nesting as opposed to exploring.
What advice would you give to someone considering making the move to Australia?
So I think, yeah, we already kind of touched on just enjoying the process, and it can be very stressful, but just before you know it, the time will pass. So enjoy the process. And also, I guess just do your research. I think, YouTube channels such as yourselves were so helpful for us. We learned so much that we really did feel quite prepared when we landed. And then I think there was a bit of a turning point for us once we were here, which was that actively making friends and actively building community. I think at first it felt quite forced and quite maybe like something we didn't have energy for or want to do. But I think we quickly found our mindsets getting a lot more positive once we had stepped out the door and tried to meet people. And yes, it can be quite uncomfortable, the same set of small talk, and the amount of time expats spend talking about visas is truly, truly remarkable. But as I say, so yeah, enjoy the process and build your community as quickly as you feel comfortable with. And yeah, that would be my advice, I think.
Thanks, Sarah, for sharing your journey with us, and I hope it's given you all a greater insight on what it's like to move to Australia if you've lived in the UK or even Canada or Scotland. If you want to see more of what her and Jamie's life is like in Perth, then make sure to check out her channel at Sarah Bolson Travels. I'll put a link to it down in the description below. And to make it even easier, she's even documenting her journey on YouTube. Sometimes when people ask me, what was it like when you first moved to Australia, Ross? I kind of feel ashamed to say, go and look at my earlier videos because they're a bit crap. But hers are half decent. But if you think to yourself, no, I don't want something so Perth-centric, and you want to see more of what my sad life is like, then make sure to check out our channel at That Johnston Life. And if you too have been inspired to make the move and you don't know where to start, contact our sponsors, True Blue Migration Services, by uploading your CV or resume to www.truebluemigration.com, and let them tell you for free the easiest way that you can move to this beautiful country. And I'll see you next time.